notice we're out of time, but you did ask certain questions from the perspective of Ecology Action Center. So I would ask the panel to answer, or if you want to prioritize which ones that you want in the next 5 minutes or so that you want the panel to answer, please prioritize them, or the panel can answer those that they can answer quickly within the extra time here.
If I could just interject, Carrie just corrected, there actually are about 8 minutes left on the timer, so as far as time.
Sorry, how much time? Sorry, I was just going by the, I misinformed you here. We have a bit more time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll proceed to address the questions that our panel is in a position to answer. We'll do so succinctly. The first question pertained to the capacity class and specification of oil transport tankers. There was a couple of things in the question. There was an assumption of transportation of diluted bitumen. Those tankers could be transporting any type of oil, including light oil, for example, to the eastern U.S. seaboard or to Europe. The other thing is that vessels are not part of the scope of the Energies project. That scope stops at the marine terminal. Nonetheless, to be helpful in terms of your question, and particularly goes to the issue of specification, I will ask Mr. Pardo not only to confirm the types of vessels, but also to very succinctly describe the vetting procedures which go to vessel specifications and ensure the safe loading of tankers at the berth. Mr. Pardo?
Thank you, Mr. Vanderput. I would like to start with mentioning some mitigation measures that all class tankers calling to Energies, the Canapor Marine Terminal, are going to have.
Pardon me, I appreciate your willingness to share that, but that wasn't part of my question. In the interest of time, I'm specifically looking for the specifications regarding to the maneuverability of the VLCC class tankers and the full stop specifications.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the question was, can they confirm the capacity, class, and specification of the tankers? That's the question.
Can you answer the question asked by Mr. Thomas?
So there are 3 classes of vessels that are going to call to Canapor Marine Terminal. The first one is Aframax vessels with capacity of 700,000 barrels. The second one is Suezmax vessels with capacity of 1.1 million barrels. And the third one is very large crude carriers, or VLCCs, with capacity of 2.2. All of them are going to have double hulls, segregated ballast, and inert gas systems prior to coming to the port. They are going to have also a pilot that is required to bring the vessel to the berth. And obviously, answering the question, the speed and the stop speed would depend on the deadweight tonnage of the vessel and the physical speed of the vessel. But the Canapor Marine Terminal will have tugboats to help in the berth maneuvers.
Just moving on, the next question pertained to the time that it would take to dispatch a response and fully contain spills, both near shore, onshore, offshore. In that regard, I would like to ask Mr. Granon to focus specifically on terrestrial spills in terms of response times, and then I'll ask Captain Donovan to speak to a spill in the Bay of Fundy.
Where I've been asked to prioritize the answers, if it matters to the proponent, I'm most interested in nearshore and offshore responses. Thank you.
Mr. Granon.
Thank you. The emergency response plan for the pipeline will have a number of tactics and strategies identified. water-based tactics for the pipeline and land-based tactics as well. Mainly, the objective will be to contain and recover the oil rapidly. On the pipeline side, if we look at the pipeline side, the response time will be immediate based on the SEPA guidelines. So upon detection of a leak, there will be immediate action by the oil control center to shut down the pipeline. Then we will initiate at the same time the mobilization of emergency response team, which starts with the mobilization of a response center that will get in touch with the local first responders upon the detection of a leak. And the maximum time allowed for that will be 1 hour. And then we have 3 hours for the first person to arrive on site. Again, this is a maximum time. And 6 hours for the first equipment to arrive on site for a pipeline spill. And in many cases, or site-specific planning in most waterways, I mean, we're going to do site-specific planning for all waterways, streams, and so on. We will plan to meet those guidelines at a minimum. In many cases, we expect to beat those guidelines. For the marine terminal, there will be on-water response capacity in case of an incident at the marine terminal, which will consist of a response vessel in booms to contain the oil. Again, the objective will be to contain the oil as quick as possible and to start recovery. As per the Canadian Shipping Act, we're going to have a response capacity of 50 cubic meter on site. And again, the response to any incident at the marine terminal will be immediate. It will be a manned facility with people at the location that will be able to start responding as soon as an incident is detected during loading and so on. And for all of this, what I would like to add before we go to Mr. Case, all of this our emergency response team will train for that, and they will exercise that type of scenarios as well.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Bernard. In regards to the marine response capabilities, the response organizations in Canada are governed by the response organization standards as issued by Transport Canada. So in the matter of an offshore spill occurring where a response organization is activated, we would have our initial response mounted within 6 hours, and this grows, of course, depending on the level of equipment that's required to be deployed to effect the containment and begin the response. In the event of it occurring outside of a geographical area response, the response organization standards also refer to the additional time that is taken to travel to a location which would be outside of a primary area response, which would be perhaps we could refer to in your reference to the Gulf of Maine. So, thank you.
Thank you, Captain Case. There was also a question with regards to the time to remediate, and Mr. Gonal is a specialist in that field. I'll ask him to respond to the question.
Thank you. Also, as part of the emergency response plan, we're going to plan for cleanup and recovery of the oil. We're going to have a shoreline cleanup techniques identified in advance based on shoreline time. To go back to your question for cleanup time, depending on the scenario, I mean, it's really difficult to provide a time estimate since any situation will be different based on the volume that will be released, the location, the exact location of that incident, the weather condition at the time, and also the environmental sensitivities that will be present at the time of the incident. So we cannot really provide a firm estimate on how much time it will take to clean. Really, there's multiple factors. We don't have much time to go in detail, but there's multiple factors here that comes into play to describe, to provide a better description.
The fourth question that we can respond to.
Hi.
Sorry.
I do apologize for interrupting out of turn again, but again, in the interest of these last 30 seconds, if we could skip just to the sixth question regarding the consultation that's happened to date with the NEB Board of Nova Scotia, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly. Mr. Matosian, please.
I believe you just asked if we could skip that question, or you would like to address that question?
Sorry. skip the others and address that question with the short amount of time we have left. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry for having to clarify that. And thank you for your question. The question was to describe engagement to date with Nova Scotia Aboriginal communities. We initially initiated engagement with Nova Scotia for Nova Scotia communities and the KMK in June 2014. And we have subsequently continued to engage with those 4 communities, but have also been sort of directed to engage through the Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative, or KMK, to speak more broadly to the Aboriginal interests of Nova Scotia. We've had various meetings. In addition to these meetings, which I'll describe in a second, we continue to share actively project information electronically and in print with the KMK. We've held a couple of meetings with various subcommittees of the KMK, the Planning Committee and the Benefits Subcommittee. In November of 2015, we had a presentation, a full project presentation on the marine aspects as well as environment and the entire project scope after the Kakuna Amendment in November 2015 to I believe all the chiefs were present of the Nova Scotia communities. And since then, we've been following the Mi'kmaq Ecological Knowledge Study Protocol, and we're currently engaged in discussions about the scope of a traditional marine use study, which we would be seeking broad participation of Aboriginal communities from Nova Scotia. And we're currently working with the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq on the specifics of that. And we continue to, as I mentioned in the objectives of our program, to continue to share information actively, to respond to issues and concerns, questions about issues and concerns, and to discuss how to avoid or mitigate potential project effects. The information that would provide a more comprehensive explanation of the engagement history is in Volume 10, Appendices 10.1 to 10.152. And within there, there'll be a specific section on the Nova Scotia community engagement history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'd like to thank once again all participants today for your contributions on this first panel session of the Energy Eastern Mainline applications. I'd also like to remind interveners for tomorrow's session that we will be starting at 8:30